Good morning, everybody. This is Dana B. from Mountain Patriots Educational Ministries with my buddy Charlie Markert. We get a chance this morning to talk to our Board of Supervisor, Blaine Dunn, from over there at Red Bud. We're going to have a great time this morning. Before we get started, I want to remind everybody this is a big deal coming up, folks. We have the wakeupwinchester.com Health and Freedom Conference. I'm going to pull it up real quick. Okay. And as usual, because we're patriots, we've done this 8 times so far, but because we're patriots, the net companies for websites decide that they want to mess with us. So make sure you check out our website. Everything's really big on it. But we have the conference coming up on the 28th from 11 o'clock in the morning till 7 in the afternoon, 7 in the evening. We have Wayne Schneider who's going to blow the shofar. We're talking about Frederick water and fluoride. We've got our 6th district chair, John Massoud, who's going to explain what that position actually does. We're going to have a food break. We got Charlie Markert coming in as George Washington. Unfortunately, it's been a couple hundred years, so his horse won't make it with him. We have Larry Johnson as the Liberty Man. I'm telling you, this is a special treat, folks. You're going to want to see this. He's going to talk to you about the Shenandoah Valley. He's going to talk to you about Liberty. They're all in period costume, so bring your kids. We have Sheriff Lenny Milholland that's going to explain to us what the sheriff does in your town. We have our Commonwealth Attorney, Ross Spicer. How many people know what the Commonwealth Attorney does? Most of us don't. We go out and vote, but we don't know what people actually do. We have a special speaker, Ann Kraft-Tages, talking all about the children from Parent Team 6. We also have a little break there. And then we have Dr. Sheila Fury, who's going to talk about the kids and what they're actually doing in a lot of satanic ways. The altar of Moloch. You got to watch your children. We have the Clouds talking to you about the special worldview, and they're super patriots down in Marshall. And then we have, we're going to cover how you have to be prepared with the 5 things that you need to carry with you. We also have Travis Dodson, who's a really good friend of ours, gives us a discount at Middletown Firearms for firearms training, but he'll be doing our sweepstakes for the his and hers raffle. So we have 2 nice pieces that we're giving away. And then, of course, we do our Patriot Prayer in the closing. So make sure you come out next Saturday, the 28th, to Millwood Fire Hall for wakeupwinchester.com number 8, and I promise you're going to have a great time. So without any further about that, I'm going to pass it over to my good friend and co-chair Charlie Markert, and he's going to introduce our phenomenal guest today, Blaine Dunn. Thank you for being here, Blaine.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dana. And yeah, Blaine, I'll second Dana's thank you for sharing with us because we are an educational ministry. And underline the word educational. At this point, we want to learn more about what's going on. And you're finishing up your last term as Board of Supervisors. Thank you for that service.
Yeah.
We appreciate what you've done for us. But you're a wealth of information, and we'll get into talking about a couple of the things that are really important and impact fees and proffers for new construction, and how that relates to the budget and the financial circumstances that we're in. We think is a really important topic that more and more people need to be aware of and conversant in. So we'll get to that, but before we do, we'd like to know a little bit about your background before you got involved into the political arena.
Okay. So grew up in New Jersey, went to school in upstate New York, got an undergraduate degree dealing with industrial distribution, which is a combination of business and engineering. Worked a little bit for Union Carbide in that field, then went to grad school, got a degree in diplomatic history from the University of Massachusetts, taught school for a couple of years.
Wow.
And then I made a switch into the political arena. Did political work for 3 members of Congress and 2 federal agencies, REA and the Department of Agriculture. And I left that to go into financial planning. I'm a fee-only fiduciary financial planner. I don't sell any product. I get paid for charging clients for expertise and advice. And for a number of years, I worked for Citigroup, then started my own firm about 25 years ago, and now work for myself
Excellent.
As a financial planner.
as a financial planner.
Yeah,
You
great.
do the
And I-
consulting for people so they can come to you and they sit down and they're able to talk to you about where they can do their investments, and you consult for them, don't you?
That's correct. So I mean, it can be anything from how to get my kid to go to college, to how to get out of debt, to, I have $1 million in a 401k that I'm going to retire with. What do I do with that money? So it's financial planning from a fiduciary basis.
Excellent. What got you into running for elected positions?
Um, we had a supervisor that had been appointed, and he began to hold meetings and make votes, which affected money. And my comment was, if you're going to go and be an elected official, in this case, he was appointed, and cast votes, then you wanted to go and talk to your constituents about their thoughts, and he never did that. So I got into this race primarily to say, fine, an elected official ought to go and talk to his constituents. And the first thing I said was, I'll hold town hall meetings. I'll get input from constituents on what they think, and I'll tell them what I'm thinking so we can have a two-way conversation. And that was the primary driver. I worked for 3 members of Congress. And you always interact with constituents. And in this case, they didn't. And so that was the driver for getting in. I won a Republican nomination and then won a general election. And I said to my constituents, I'll hold town hall meetings. I want to deal with the issue of growth. How do we pay for it? And that was the primary drivers getting into the Board of Supervisors.
Yeah, that issue of growth and how we pay for it is a big deal, and that's why we're here to pick your brain today, so we can get smarter about that.
So, what would you like to know, Charlie, on dealing with that?
Well, first of all, I know I'm involved in the Planning Commission, so I know a little bit about this, and I know that we have proffers. That a builder comes into our area and decides they want to build something here, whether it's houses or a business or whatever it is, and or a data center, and they want to do this, and they are encouraged to provide compensation, some additional money to cover the impact of their coming into our area.
Right.
In other words, a new house has adds to the burden of fire protection, of schools, of
Police
infrastructure,
department, correct.
police department, fire department.
Right.
So they're expected to pay a portion of it, and voluntarily they'll offer proffers. And we as commissioners, supervisors aren't allowed to say, we want you to give a proffer of $30,000 a house. They have to come up with whatever they're offering. Now, there's an alternative, and you mentioned the new development and how to pay for it. So it's the how to pay for it that's the big issue. And we'd like to hear some of the alternatives. One of the alternatives being impact fees, which were restricted by Richmond on what we can, or even if we can ask for impact fees from a builder. So help us put that proffer and impact fee issue in perspective.
Let me
Okay,
ask a question real quick, Blaine, because
go
there's
ahead.
a lot of people, okay, as you know, we're doing Wake Up Winchester, and a lot of people go out and they show up at a Board of Supervisors meeting or a planning commission, and they have absolutely no idea what a lot of the stuff actually means. Okay, so I want to back up because I understand it pretty well, but what is a proffer? Okay, that's the first step. People are going, what is it? What does that mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, what is a proffer? Or what does the sheriff do? What does the Commonwealth attorney do? I mean, what is a proffer? What is an impact fee? Okay, is there something outside of our jurisdiction, like we know Richmond, that says you can or can't do this? So if you can kind of give people a little overview of what that means, it'll help them understand the impact that happens to Frederick County a lot better than just because they sit there and go, well, why can't we get proffers, which or an impact fee, but they don't understand what that actually means.
All right. So let me just go and take you a little bit back in time.
Great.
Sometime probably back in the 1970s, 1980s, the county basically said, we're going to start to do zoning. And in that zoning process, you're going to have to go and have certain impacts. Back in 1980, we had probably 30,000 people here.
Good history.
In the year 2000, we had 59,000 people here.
Mhm.
Today, we have 99,000 people here. So in the last 25 years, it has grown significantly. 25 years ago, the county said, John Doe, you want to go and build a house. And when you build that house, you're going to have kids. And you're going to have another car on the road. And you're going to go and probably need a sheriff or an ambulance driver, something of that nature. And when you have John Doe plus 1,000, now you have 1,000, needs for those items. And so the question then becomes, how do you pay for that? Proffers are voluntary. I want to emphasize the word voluntary.
This is what people don't know. That's why I asked you to explain it to folks, because this will go all over the place.
And so proffers are voluntary. And by law, Richmond has said that you, the Board of Supervisors, cannot go and demand or ask for proffers. We can say to a developer, you're going to build 1,000 houses, and what happens for fire and rescue? Do you think we're going to have additional needs for fire and rescue? Or do you think we're going to have additional needs for deputies? Or do you think we're going to have additional needs for schools? What's going to happen to the roads? And a good developer will say, you know what, let me help you pay for some of those costs.
Right.
And then he might say that for every square foot, he'll offer a certain, a penny for those items. I don't break that down. But that's a voluntary offer from a developer. The board cannot say, Mr. Developer, it's going to cost $37,000 for each unit that you build. Please write us a check. And that is the current cost for, according to staff, for every new house that's built. So for every new house that you're seeing, you have a $37,000 capital cost that's having to be addressed. How do you pay for that? At the corner of where I live, right now we have some townhouses that are going up.
Mm-hmm.
The townhouses were gone and proffered 25 years ago.
Right.
The proffers are a whopping $1,000.
25 years ago.
25 years ago.
Yeah.
So 25 years ago, those are rezoning, and that was about $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
Today, as those houses are going up, the cost to the county is $37,000.
$37,000.
We have a $36,000 differential. How do you pay for that differential? And we went going through a budget process, which right now we're running a $15 million deficit. And so we have to figure out how to go and pay for that. So 4 or 5 years ago, I've gone to Richmond twice now. Well,
Mhm.
I've gone to 3 times, but twice to testify for impact fees. And let me give you an example of impact fees where they do work. In San Diego County,
Mhm.
California, you have 2 people. Person number 1 has lived there all his life. He buys a house for $100,000 when he's 20 years old. He's now 60 years old, and that $100,000 house is worth $1 million. And just for the sake of argument, let's say when he bought the $100,000 house, he had to pay $1,000 in taxes. These are made up numbers. Then Blaine Dunn moves into the house next door and builds a new house. Same $1 million house as my neighbor. My neighbor's only paying $1,000. And San Diego County says, Blaine, you are bringing in an additional cost to our county. And therefore, we're going to charge you $10,000 for the additional cost that you bring in because you come in here with, 2 kids and a dog, and you're going to have other expenses that we don't have if you had not moved in.
Couple cars and a trailer. So since you moved in later on, and I'm just going to say inflation has gone up, you should pay your impact towards the community.
That's correct.
Okay.
At current prices.
I just wanted to clarify that because a lot of people don't understand that. And that kind of puts the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission behind the 8 ball as the bad guys, because 25 years ago, that's $1,000. Today, it's $37,000. And then people scream about the taxes. So somebody moving in here new, they make an impact. Am I correct?
Yep, you're correct.
Okay, I just wanted to put that out there.
And not only that, You hear about the development that's occurring in the county.
Hmm.
The Board of Supervisors has no control, none, zero, on the houses that you're seeing being built up in the last 10 years. We've had no rezoning of rural to residential preferred since I've been on the board.
Hmm.
But all these houses that are being built, Sovereign Village behind me, for example, was all built and designed 25 years ago.
Right.
And so therefore the question becomes, how do you pay for it? Richmond has to give us, the Board of Supervisors, the ability to go and have impact fees. I've testified on this issue before, and the issue is important because our ability to raise money comes primarily from real estate taxes, personal property taxes.
Right.
We also get money from businesses. But right now, our economic growth is not occurring as rapidly as our population growth. And so therefore, the population growth is causing our budgets to go up. 2 years ago, we had a budget in the neighborhood of $230 million. Today, we have a budget in the neighborhood of $282 million. It's a $50 million increase in 2 years. What's
And
that?
then it'll be, what do you think it'll be next year?
I think we'll cross 300 million.
300. Okay.
And the
So
reason I make
let me back up. So a lot of people don't understand this because I didn't. Okay. So we're Frederick County and you guys are the Board of Supervisors, but you have to make sure that Richmond approves the fact on whether or not you can do a proffer or an impact fee. So we're not even in control of our own little county. Is that kind of what you're telling us?
Yes.
So how do people get around that? Do they have to change Richmond by the delegates or by the senators? Or so, in other words, is it important to vote?
Absolutely.
Or raise taxes.
That's
Another
where
way to
I
get
was
around
heading,
it.
folks. You can't yell at everybody because you got to remember we're a small county here, but it's the people that are down in Richmond that are telling us you can only do this, 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 or this, and you don't have some control over your own destiny. So we're trying to work within a framework that somebody gave us that may not work for us.
So remember, we are a Dillon state, so we can only do what the General Assembly says we can do.
There you go.
And so if you want to go and have impact fees or provide the county with some other option on raising revenue, and that's going to come from the General Assembly. And my comment is go see our local delegation and in a polite and civil way, keywords polite and civil, make the case on why you think impact fees would give the county the opportunity to go and provide options on raising income and raising income for the county, raising to cover the costs.
So give us a definition of an impact fee.
Okay, so Sovereign Village is built behind me. Sovereign Village has, 1,500 homes.
Mm-hmm.
That used to be a farm. You could walk on that farm. Today, all those houses have traffic that goes on to Cincinnati Road, that goes
Right.
into Winchester. 20 years ago, Cincinnati Road was a rural road,
Right.
and there were no traffic jams. Today, there are people that are trying to get onto Cincinnati that are having to wait just because of the traffic that's continuing to roll through. Abrams Point is another example. And so all those have brought additional costs. Millbrook High School, Red Bud School were all built because of the development that was occurring. And those schools that were being bought cost money. And we, the taxpayers, are paying for that
We have to pay it.
with a real estate tax. So the impact is the capital cost. Each of those homes is an expensive capital cost. And the capital cost has risen from the 15,000 range to the 30,000 range in the last few years. But when you say, Charlie, give me an example of an impact fee, 1,000 homes with, 1,000 kids means we need another school, which means another $30 million. And where do you get the money to pay for that?
Well, you're only getting 1,000.
That's correct. And if you could
So you're
say,
only getting 1,000, but you're costing each house is costing, and I'm just doing some not perfect numbers, but $37,000. But somebody sold their house someplace else to move here for $1 million, to move here to get a nicer house for 500,000. But there's no fee in there for them to move into a new house here to help us upgrade the infrastructure so it comes out of the current taxpayer's pocket.
Correct.
Unless there's a proffer.
Unless there's a proffer. That's what this is what most people don't understand, but they're going to come and yell at the board when they don't understand it, which is why we're talking to people like Dolores Oates and Bill Wiley and all the other delegates so that people understand what we need to do come November. And that's just a start.
Same thing for Senator French.
And Senator French, correct. We're trying to get him on here now.
All of them need to discuss the
Right.
issue. And if somebody has a better option, I'm all for it. But right now, this is the equivalent of a user fee.
Your hands are tied.
If you go to a national park,
Right.
you pay a fee to go in. And the
Right.
purpose is, fine, you're a U.S. citizen, but there's a cost when you come in. You want to use a bathroom. You want to go and park your car, etc. So we're just trying to cover costs. And all an impact fee is we're trying to cover the costs. I've had multiple people come to me from elsewhere. Pittsburgh, person came down and said, raise my taxes by $1,000. It doesn't bother me. I was paying $15,000 there. I'm
You're
only
used to it.
$2,500 here. Fine. I've had people from Connecticut, New Jersey, New York, and Northern Virginia who come and said,
Loudoun County.
raise my taxes. It's okay
Perfect.
because it's still less than what they were paying. At
Right.
the same time, people that have lived here all their life have said, Blaine, if those people had not come in, my taxes wouldn't have to go up. So why shouldn't they pay the cost of what they're bringing? And then that's fair to everybody.
Mhm.
I've had people literally poke me in the chest and say, Blaine, what do I pay for? Your taxes or my medicine? And so my
Right.
impact fees is a way that's fair to everybody. The person that's moving in is simply covering his cost, additional costs that he brings,
Their impact.
their impact, and the people that have lived here all their life are not affected by the growth. One last comment on this issue. I've been
This is
told many
great.
times that doesn't the growth that occurs, the real estate tax, cover the cost? And the answer is no. The real estate tax for those 1,000 new homes is covering the operational costs, the day-to-day cost of the county, but it does not cover the capital costs. And so for us to have the capital costs covered, we'd have to raise the rate from the mid-50s to $1. And nobody wants to do that. But if we could have impact fees, that's it. So how do we achieve this goal? I think that we will have a legislative session with our local delegation
Mhm.
in August or September because they have to go and make law, produce and submit bills by the middle of November, early December.
Right.
So if we can get a bill to be put into the hopper in the General Assembly for discussion, that helps, number one. Number two, if local citizens will come to the Board of Supervisors and say, we support impact fees, that sends the message to the other board members that, yes, this is important. If one or two people come and say it, that's fine. If 20 or 30 or 40 people come, that makes a much bigger impact.
Oh, yes, it does.
I know I've worked for, 3 members of Congress, and if you get a number of people that will come and talk on an issue, he says, fine, we are going to start to listen. And so if there are multiple people who come and say, fine, how do we address the growth issue? And if they support impact fees, they ought to come and say that. It's not going to be a perfect bill, but it sure as heck is better than saying to you, well, we'll have to raise your real estate tax another 10, 20, 30% for the additional 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people that are coming in. And just going back, Dana, we've raised our budget $50 million in 2 years. And that's paying for additional fire and rescue.
Right.
It's paying for additional schools. It's paying for additional cops. All that counts. And if you say to me, well, Blaine, I don't want that, that's fine. But don't call up and say you have a heart attack and then expect to have an ambulance there in 3 minutes. We might say, hey, we'll be there in 20 minutes or 30 minutes. Hope you can live that long. So that's the issue that we're paying. And we put in a new fire station. That fire station cost another $10 million.
Right.
The equipment going into that, it was $7.5 million. The equipment going into that was another $3 million.
Right.
As we have additional growth, we're going to need another fire station. So Dan, I asked you the question. Your neighbor goes and has a heart attack.
Right.
Ambulance comes and gets him. And then 10 minutes later, you have a heart attack.
That's it.
And your wife says, dear, I'd like you to live. And they say, well, fine. But our response time normally would be 5 minutes. But because we are short and we have other calls, we will get there in 15 minutes. So I hope you can live that long. And that's the purpose for these new stations, so we can meet the response time necessary. And the new station is designed specifically for that because we could not meet response time. So that's why we have a new station and we will probably have a second new station coming in the next few years, just because of the growth.
Well, I'm going to pick on the people here for a second. All right. As you noticed, there was a lot of people there last night.
Yep.
And Mountain Patriots Educational Ministries was put together literally as a neighborhood watch. Okay. If somebody needed help, because we were looking at it, if something happens with the current situation that the world is in right now, how can we stick together? And if somebody needs help, one of us is there to help the other person. You'd be amazed at how many people are like, well, that takes time out of my vacation or golf or whatever. So I don't want to show up to a Mountain Patriots meeting because, or we joke about this. We all have radios. So if somebody needs help, they can call on the radio, but they can't make it on a Tuesday night. But if something happens, they'll be the first ones that'll say, well, I couldn't get in touch with anybody. Well, I didn't know how to use my radio. It's the same thing here. So I'm going to pick on the people a little bit. Folks, you've got to show up. Okay. It's like, why didn't the Board of Supervisors do this? And it's on both sides. Why didn't the Board of Supervisors do this? Why didn't the school board do this? Why didn't these people do this? But they show up after the problem to be able to point the finger rather than being proactive. They're reactive. Okay, I was told there's two ways to do things. So you can respond or react. Well, I would rather respond to a situation that's happening right now and take a look ahead at what's going. Same thing you do with retirement. You're a financial planner.
Yep.
You put away and you say, hey, pay yourself first and do this. Same thing with health insurance. You put things away. You don't want to react. It's like trying to buy car insurance after you had the accident.
And they say, no.
And they say, no, you can't do that. Well,
that.
why can't I? But that's where we are. So this is my battle cry to the people of Frederick County. Folks, we have a great county here. That's why I moved here from Baltimore. That's why Blaine moved here. This is why you moved here, Charlie. Okay. We wanted to I live on top of a mountain. Okay. Do you think I like somebody living across the street or down the road? No, but I get it. Okay. But that creates an impact. People have got to be proactive and be part of the process, not reactive. They have to be responsive. And let's pull this thing together and make Frederick County the county. We could be a model county for the rest of the country, for the rest of the state. That's Mountain Patriots Educational Ministries, taking care and educating the kids. But we're trying to do this also, and this is what Charlie and I talk about a lot, is educating the adults. Get educated, because they don't know. They go to work, they come home, and then they complain about their taxes.
So, David,
Charlie?
Yeah. I'm still stuck back a little bit. What does an impact fee look like? Is it like a meal tax? Does it give us the ability to charge the $37,000 to the builder?
As opposed to the proffer that we can't do?
What does it look like?
So, Charlie, you can design it in certain ways, but you could say to a developer, fine, you're going to build 100 houses. And if the impact of those 100 houses is, $30,000, then either write us a check for that impact, or you could say, as each house is developed and a person moves into it, write us a check then. So that's a way to do it. In Clark County, for example, I believe you pay like $28,000 to $30,000 for a water hookup. Now, this county is different than that, but there you want water in your house, you write a check. That dollar amount could be built into a mortgage. And so you're not going to be paying $37,000. This is the staff number up front, but you can build that $37,000 into the price of your home and then pay it out over the course of a mortgage. That's one option.
Over 30 years, which $37,000 is $1,000, a little over $1,000 a year.
Right. In exchange, though, we've just gone and had a 13-14% real estate tax increase. And for most families here, that's gone up, more than a couple $100. In the last 10 years, real estate taxes have in the last about 6 years, real estate taxes have gone up about 50%. Take a look at your real estate tax from 10 years ago. Take a look at it today. I mean, a typical home that was paying $1,000 is now paying $2,000.
Right.
And so that is going to continue to grow. An impact
in a bad economy.
That problem. So this is an alternative. For people that get up to the board and say, fine, we don't like A, B, and C, my question to them, and it's a sincere one, is What is your alternative? Give me an alternative, and we will listen to that. People have good ideas, but right
Yeah.
now, the
That's
areas.
why we need them there. Let's hear the ideas.
So if you have an idea, bring it on.
Yes.
But I've supported impact fees, not that I'm wedded to it, because I think it's the fairest way to address the issue. And if you don't like that, then how do you raise revenue? And if you say that we need to go and cut the county budget, then tell me where. I think this county is a well-run county. I'm not saying the federal government is. I don't know about the state to say. But I know the federal government, I can go through huge cuts on that. But in this county, we have a pretty well-run, fiscally responsible county. And can I find $100,000 or $200,000 where we can make some adjustments? Yes. But can I find $15 million? If you want, and that's the budget deficit we're dealing with right now, then where do you get $15 million for operations? And that would mean that you have to go and eliminate 30 fire and rescue people, 30 police, get rid of Parks and Rec, and I can go down the list.
Or steal it from the capital improvement fund.
Or steal it from the capital improvement fund. And when the capital improvement fund then goes to zero,
Right.
then that board is going to be faced with, okay, now what do we do? And that's why I've been an advocate for let's solve the problem that we have now. So a future board isn't faced with oops, we have no more money in a capital improvement fund to subsidize things. Now what do we do? And people at that time are going to say to that board, oh, you're terrible because you had to raise taxes. And they're going to say, the choice is raising taxes, or do you want us to go and eliminate fire and rescue? Would you like us to eliminate cops? Those are the big areas. We only have 600 people or 670 people on county staff for this county. And the efficiency of the county has actually improved where we're getting more services for fewer people. But you're still going to have the need for schools. You're going to still have the need for school teachers. And the policy question becomes, do you want to have your kids in a trailer? Or do you want to have your kids in a hardened school? And in today's day and age, I think that kids in trailers becomes a safety issue. So as the county grows another 40,000 people, what do you do with the school children? Where do they go?
That makes perfect sense. But this is why the battle, this is part of the, like I was saying, Blaine, this is part of the reason that Mountain Patriots Educational Ministries exists, because people don't understand. And it's really easy to point a finger when you don't understand. And then we stomp our feet and yell and scream and blame somebody else. But remember, if you point a finger, there's three more pointing back at you. Did you show up at the school board? Did you show up at this? Did you look at the budget? And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm as guilty of it. I mean, I moved here and I worked 17 hours a day. One of the last things that you want to do is take some of your free time and end up at a Board of Supervisors meeting. But I will read the Winchester Star and maybe get some leaning whatever way blame that somebody put in there about Blaine Dunn or Bob Wells or Charlie Market or whoever. Okay. Oh, and it's their fault. Well, did you go to a meeting? No, but I read it in the paper. It was the headline.
Yeah.
Well, you've got to do some research on this stuff. And we are all about the research. That's why we have people come out to our meetings like you.
And Dana, I appreciate it. I mean, I think that you can do educational stuff all day long, and that's important. Like I said last night, I think there should have been a town hall meeting on impact fees. I've held town hall meetings, and I'm probably the only supervisor
I've been
for the last 10 years, okay? And I've done that.
Your meetings.
I've done that so that you can have interaction. People can ask me questions, open topics, and I can say, here's the issues that I see. What do you think? And you've seen, I know you've been to those. I
have been.
Probably you too.
Yeah.
And so I'm just saying that's why I hold them. And I think that what you're doing with Mountain Patriots is a plus because you're doing the same type of thing in a video format. And I know you also do it in person. But I think that we as a county, if we can get together and have honest, intellectually honest conversations on policy issues, it's helpful. And I, as a supervisor, learn something from them. And I'll tell you, other supervisors, you learn something from them by listening. So those are helpful. So people, when they talk, it's not just wasted words. You pick up ideas. And you say, I hadn't thought about that. Or you say, I had thought about that. And here's the problem. Then you go back to the person and say, how do you deal with this issue? And so it's a good educational process. I think that everybody in this county wants to improve this county.
Yes.
We have different ways to try to do that, but we should work together to try to achieve that objective.
See, and I'm going to say it just like this. This is a bipartisan issue. This isn't a left issue or a right issue. This is a people issue. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. How many adults do you think work in Frederick County? There's what,
Yeah,
99,000 people, right?
I heard your question, and so the population is about 99,000. I think there's about 60,000 registered voters, so that puts them over the age of 18.
So you got
No,
60,000 registered voters.
and I
Okay.
know that there's a lot of voters that go east from here, so I don't know how many people work here. Um,
Let's say half. Let's
okay,
say a third. Okay. Let's say there's 99,000 people in Frederick County and a third of those people work. Okay. That's 33,000 people. Okay. How many people were at the Board of Supervisors last night? Were there 33,000 people?
there were
Were there
probably
3,300 people?
nope.
There was about
There
33 people. I mean, do you see where I'm going with this?
Yep.
So you've got to be plugged in. We can't stand by and just let the government run things, because eventually AI will take it, and then you're complaining about that, and then you want money from the government. If you want freedom in this country, freedom is not free. You have got to show up. If you're on a baseball team, you don't say, "Well, I hope my team wins this week." You got to be out there and you got to practice. I mean, it's just part of it. But I am being a little bit hard on some folks. Barbara
Putting that
and
in,
Charlie and I,
putting Dana,
yeah,
putting
Charlie,
that in perspective.
you know where I'm
Blaine,
going.
you have many years of trying to get people involved. Um, what is your sense of what needs to be done to be able to get more than 3% to come and vote, um,
Prices
and
go up.
get them
Pain,
off of their keister on the couch
pain.
and do something? Um, it's a dilemma, as Dana mentioned. You work in a job, maybe two jobs. You just don't have time for everything. Um, how do we make it sexy? How do we make it how
Good
they want to
idea.
come and participate?
Well, I can say this with a smile. If we hand out ice cream, will they come? We hand
Well,
out
wait a minute. That
popcorn,
goes in the budget, doesn't it?
popcorn and a Coke. Will you come?
I
If you
love it.
say fine, we will go and charge you a fee to come. And if you are not satisfied, we'll refund your fee.
I love it.
That'd be fine. But on a serious note, Charlie, I think people do nothing because they say it doesn't affect me until
Right.
it does
I'm
affect
not going to
them.
vote.
And
It
then they
won't
come
count.
back and they say, fine, this affects me. As Dana was saying earlier, they're now reacting. They're not saying, where do we go? Um, I think that if you continue to go and say, fine, let's talk about issues. Let's talk about budget issues. Let's talk about transportation issues.
Right.
Let's talk about impact fees. All that is helpful. And if the people on Mountain Patriots each talk to 4 or 5 people, that's a larger group. You can
Mhm.
also go and talk to people and say, fine, if our taxes rose by $1,000, would that bother you? Well, they're not going to do that. Let's assume that they would. If they did, could you show up? Yeah, I could show up for that reason. Well, if you don't show up, they will, because that's
Mhm.
what we're looking at. And then to say, if you like something, go to a board of supervisors and say, we like what you did,
We
because that's
like this
enforcement now.
exactly. Don't just pick at what's if so. I'll tell you something the board's done, and we are really appreciative about this. We've been working on this for a few years. In Back Creek, we can have chickens.
Yep.
Now that might sound like a small deal. I mean, but we worked on that, and the board went through and we did the chickens. There's been a couple things that we've been able to accomplish working with the board of supervisors, but that's because we show up. There's some people that just got tired of it. And, we've watched everything happen since 2016. We've watched the elections. We've watched what's happened over the last 4 years. We've watched inflation. People have a lot of pain right now. And there's a way out of it, but there's got to be just a little bit of effort. I say at the Mountain Patriots meetings, if I gave you $5,000 and I asked you to work an extra 3 hours a week this year, would you do it? Well, yeah, 3 hours a week. Let me see, that's 150 hours a year. With 2 weeks off, $5,000. Sure, I do it. We'll show up to a board of supervisors meeting. It's the same thing,
Right.
because you can cut back on the amount of money it's costing you, or you can find ways where people are going to volunteer to do things. I'll share this with you. And the Patriots know this. Do you know what we'll make off of Wake Up Winchester?
You mean how much you expect to profit? I don't
Nothing.
think I don't think you're going to make much of anything. I think you're going to cover
Nothing.
your cost. You're going to cover your
Nothing. We
costs.
cover the costs. We're covering the pizza. We've got speakers coming in for free. The fire hall's helping us out. Everybody's doing this as a volunteer thing because we wanted to be able to offer something for. Where else are you going to get pizza on Saturday afternoon for free and learn something about your county?
And not only that, you get to talk to the sheriff, find out what's legal, not legal.
Exactly. The
You go get
sheriff,
to
the
talk to
attorney.
the county attorney. You can ask him questions specific. I mean, I think you have a great situation on an educational process. You have some people to talk about education. That's
We
a
have
plus.
that.
So it's
We've
like,
talked child
why would you not
trafficking.
want to come and learn?
Right.
And not only learn, but you'll save yourself money because you'll become a better informed citizen. So when the
Absolutely.
board goes and makes decisions, you'll understand where things are coming from and why.
Exactly right. You know what's really neat? We have Bill Wiley coming on here next week. We've had Dolores Oates. We have the superintendent of the schools. We have Dr. Hummer. We've been out to see him, and he's like, man, I wish I knew what to do, but if people would show up and talk to me like you guys do, okay, and people go, oh, it's Hummer's fault. Well, no, he's trying to make sure that they're trying, but you're always going to have people throwing those slings and arrows that don't show up.
And for Dr. Hummer, he's trying to run a school system.
Trying.
And it costs money. He has a teacher deficit. Can I make suggestions on where I think their budget can be cut? Yes. But
Mhm.
he has a multi-million-dollar budget that he has to try to get through so he can educate kids. And the comments that you've heard me say is, you know what, how well do those kids do? So he has to go and improve the educational quality that is being laid out. Dr. Hummer is willing to talk to people. He listens,
Absolutely
and
is.
that's important. And so if you have ideas or suggestions on how to improve the school system, go talk to him. And if you have his on,
Absolutely.
I think the people will be pleasantly surprised at what he can offer.
Well, it's pretty neat because we're going to be talking to Dr. Hummer. We'll probably come out to the board. We have a couple ideas to be able to raise funds that'll not only help the people of the county, but it'll also help the county at the same time. And it brings people together. That idea Charlie and I have been working on, oh, what about 3 months, 4 months now, Charlie?
Yeah.
We have something for medical, we have something for emergencies, we have something to cut back on the cost of food and so forth that people can get. But it gets the community involved and it'll also throw some money back into the system, and it's got to be win-win. If it's not a win-win-win situation, Mountain Patriots won't touch it. We won't touch it. Everybody's got to win. It's a ministry.
I think that's a plus. And I think you are doing a good job on that. And I
We're
hope you continue
trying.
to grow.
We're trying. We get our ears slapped back here and there too. You can't keep everybody. If you're not getting complaints, you're not doing anything. I mean, when people complain, at least you know you made an impact. Charlie, what other questions do you have?
Well, I was wondering, can you give us a sense of the Board of
This
Supervisors
has been
as it
great.
exists today, and the new people coming in? Do you have any thoughts or that you'd be willing to share
That might
on
help them.
yeah, on the Board of Supervisors?
I think that from the Board of Supervisors perspective, I think that we all need to go and figure out a way to solve some problems.
Mhm.
So, as you know, I'm glad that Lance Allen and Bob Lero won. I think they'll both be good board members. But I think that this board and next year's board as well needs to come together and say, how do we solve a problem? It
Mhm.
should be a situation where it's not no, no, no. But if you say no, then what's your alternative? So just
Right.
let me try and run down very quickly through how do you deal with the growth issue? Because I think that's a major issue in this county, and transportation is a major issue in this county. So in the growth issue, how do you solve it? You have economic development. We're all in favor of that, but economic development right now is
Right.
not bringing enough revenue to cover costs. You can have impact fees. If we do impact fees,
Right.
then we need to go to Richmond. The whole board, in my opinion, needs to go to Richmond, and the chairman needs to get up with the vice chair and somebody say, here's why impact fees are important.
But
And
we
we
all
would
go.
like you, the General Assembly, to change the law so that we in Frederick County have the ability to go and charge impact fees to cover our costs. And if you, the General Assembly, say no to that, then
Right.
tell me what the alternative is other than raising real estate taxes. And many of you in the General Assembly don't want to raise real estate taxes. So what are the options that you're providing for a local government to do that?
Right.
Number three, If you don't like those items, then what about a 1% sales tax, a referendum, in which the voters get to decide if there's a referendum on a sales tax of 1% on purchases, not including food, not including medicine, which means that if you purchase less than $10,000 of items, a new chair, a new computer, etc., it's going to cost you $100. In addition, we get revenue in that situation from all the tourists that come through. If you don't like that, then you're faced with a meals tax. We can raise this meals tax by 2 cents. That would bring in $3.6 million. Or you can raise real estate taxes. For every penny raised, it's $1.8 million. I'm not keen on real estate taxes because I can't sell my extra bedroom to
Yeah.
pay the tax. But I've laid out some other options that I think would be good. And at the top of that was the impact fees. The General Assembly can change that law. And I think that we need to sit down with the governor as well, whoever's elected, hope wins some wins, and say, Governor, give us the options. Because if you don't support this, then how do we in the local arena pay for our growth?
Mm-hmm.
So I've laid out options, and I've said to other board members, and I've laid this out publicly, Dan, as you've seen me do this multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
Then you other board members either say, yes, we agree, and collectively we work together, or if you say no, then tell me what your alternative is. So that's my thoughts on the board. One other issue, Charlie, which is equally important, is transportation.
Yes.
20 years ago, if I went to Jubal Early in Pleasant Valley and there were 2 cars there, that was a traffic jam. Today, I go to that same intersection and I have 30 cars or longer.
Well, you sit at the light you sit at the light 3 times and wait for it to change to make a
Or
left.
do that. And so we have to deal with the transportation issue. Transportation is a state issue, and I understand that. But if the county puts in 20% of the cost of a project, the state will put in 80%. So you put in $20 and you get $80, that's a wonderful exchange of dollars. We need to go and increase the transportation dollars in our budget. A few years ago, it was 8.8 million. Then it dropped to 6, then dropped to 3.2. That was less than 1%, about 1%. This year, it's $7 million, about 2%. In my opinion, it ought to be close to 5%. And we are going to also have transportation issues if we build a Route 37 or if we do not build it. Either way, we're going to have a transportation issue. Do you want to build a 37 to relieve some of the traffic internally? If you say no to that or a parkway, then you're going to have to spend a lot of money on the roads internally in Frederick County to do the same situation. So we need to think proactively and say, fine, where do we go down the road to deal with the transportation issue? And finally, where do we go down the road to deal with the new capital projects? Again, impact fees is one way to do it. If you say no to that, then how do you pay for school growth? Because school growth is going to continue as the population continues. We are not going to be able to stop 30 to 40,000 people moving into this county in the next 20 years. So look back 20 years and see where we were. Look forward 20 years, see where we are. And that's the issue that I would say to the board members. We need to collectively get together and solve a problem. Last night, we had a discussion on trying to solve a problem. We're going to have another discussion on trying to solve the problem on the growth, which we need to do. And if we can do that collectively, we all win.
Yeah, I love it.
Well
I love
said.
it.
I'm really pleased that you bring up problem solving.
Yeah,
Because
that's exactly. And getting
students
people
in
involved.
in schools, you're not taught problem solving.
No.
Or maybe you are, I don't know, but it certainly doesn't seem that way. And the source of problems, do you know what the source of problems are? Solutions.
Right?
Most people see a problem and they have a solution. They don't go through all the steps in between to say, well, what is the problem? Let's define it. Where did it come from? How did it start? What are the possible solutions to it? What are the pros and cons of each of those solutions? And then you work through coming up with the best solution or the best 2 solutions. And then you set a plan forward to who's going to do what by when.
Right.
And they aren't taught that. It's just, I see a problem, I got a solution. And it's usually not the right solution. So, and I've seen that in your thinking. You have a problem-solving mind, a technical engineering mind to go in and figure out the problem and all the solutions and do that kind of analysis. And that good on you. Thank you for what you've done, and thank you for your service on the Board of Supervisors.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Blaine, do you have any closing thoughts for us today? Anything that you want people to know that we can do? I think this has been one of the best podcasts Charlie, that I think we've done, because the whole idea behind these podcasts to begin with, Blaine, was to wake up Winchester. Let's let people know what's going on. Let's hear from Board of Supervisors. Let's hear from people on the school board. Let's hear from the mayor or the city council, or now we've got people talking. The whole idea was to get people talking, not just looking at the Winchester Star or Facebook and bashing everybody about what they did or said or didn't do or didn't say.
Right.
You know, it's getting people together. So what are some of the final thoughts that you think that some of the folks should know here?
Final thoughts, I think, are number one, I appreciate what you're doing to get a wider group of people educated. That's a big plus. Number two, I would say to viewers, if you come down and decide what are the 2 or 3 or 4 most important issues, what's the most important issues that you feel, and contact your supervisor or just go to the board and say, here's the 3 things that we would like you, the board, to solve. And that's helpful.
Mm-hmm.
3, be civil with people, be polite with
Absolutely.
people. I've
Be
had people
nice.
agree with me and disagree with me. And sometimes if you disagree with me, that's fine, and I learned something. Or sometimes the person that's disagreeing with says, I didn't know that, and he learned something or she learned something. So having a conversation as opposed to, these are the facts. Are you sure those are the facts? Did you consider A, B, and C, and
Right.
go from there? And so I think that if we try to work together, realizing everybody has a good objective and go forward, that's a plus. No one wants to, at least in my opinion, no one wants to raise taxes in this county, but the growth is going to come. And so how do you deal with the growth? Everyone would like to be able to go and have few cars on the road, but as the growth continues, the traffic continues. So how do you solve the transportation problem?
Right.
Frederick County would like to go and have options to deal with the growth issue, but that has to come from Richmond. So if you support us having the freedom to go and change things in Frederick County, then support our efforts to go to Richmond and tell to our local delegation and give Frederick County the options, sorry, so that they can go and raise revenue without having to raise real estate taxes.
Right.
All those things are helpful. I think that a well-educated public is a plus. And
Well-educated public.
and if we can do that, and you're trying to do that, that's a big plus. Today you have the Winchester Star, but you also have podcasts such as yours, which have a great outreach. You have other videos, you have Facebook. So if you can get people that are well educated and can talk with each other, not at each other, but with each other,
Right.
then we all win.
Exactly. I love it. This has been fantastic. Blaine, I want to thank you for taking the time today. I hope everybody comes out to Wake Up Winchester, because we're going to cover a lot of the things that we've been talking about today. How can someone get involved in what's going on in their community? And we're not only working here, Blaine, but we're talking to people in Warren County. We're talking to people in Loudoun County, because they all feel the same way, but everybody does this instead of trying to come together. And if you understand and you educate yourself and you're part of the, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. So don't complain if you're not going to show up.
And so, Dana, I know you've said this before, but why don't you just tell everybody where you're going to be doing it, what time you're going to be doing it? And I know you had on the screen earlier what you were going through in the beginning of this, but if you'd like to re-highlight that, go ahead so that people listening can have their mind refreshed.
Well, Blaine, thanks for doing that. All right. Hopefully our website will work again later on today. There is a link on Facebook for it, but we are covering, we call it basic fun civics. What do your county officials do? This will be one of probably 2 of these that we do. But we're covering what's going on with the water. We're covering what's going on with the food. We're covering what's going on with George Washington without his horse. The Liberty Man, right, Charlie? We have the
Right.
sheriff. What does the sheriff do? What are the responsibilities of the sheriff? How can you help the sheriff? What's the Commonwealth attorney? We're covering elections. You know, elections have been a big problem because people have a thing about cheating. Okay, we all know about that. So we're teaching people how to be involved in that. Ann Tatus is fantastic with the children. So is Dr. Sheila Fury. She is a child psychologist that works with the parents and the children, and she's all against a lot of these medications that they're giving these kids, which is insane. You've got the clouds that are coming out. You got Travis Dodson. And then if you go to our site, you'll be able to see all the upcoming events. My wife has done I will say thank you, Barbara, Batgirl, for doing this. She works her tail off for free, probably about 50 hours a week doing this. But you'll notice everything is up to date. The Board of Supervisors meeting, Small Business Freedom Alliance, County School Board. It's all here on the site. So come out, spend $20, get to know the community, find out what's going on in your community, see how you can step up and help, have some pizza, and enjoy the day.
And your item,
wakeupwinchester.com.
I think you said the Millwood Banquet Hall, right, on this Saturday. And what time?
Next Saturday.
Next Saturday. And what time does it begin again?
Pardon me?
And what time does it begin again?
It starts at 11 a.m. and it runs to 7 p.m. You can get in touch with any one of the Mountain Patriots. We have a sweepstakes for his and hers 380 and 9mm. So that ought to be pretty cool. You know, and what's really neat is it's not a moneymaker for us. If somebody needs help, we had a good friend of ours who's been very active. The Sparkmans. Okay, we lost David Sparkman. He's a really good friend of ours, but they needed help. So the Mountain Patriots went out. We got him a ramp. Okay, we did 3,800 pounds of venison last year. Okay, all over the county. So we take the money that we have and we try to help out families, and then hopefully we'll be able to put together a center or a school where we can work with the homesteaders and the moms and dads that want to do homeschooling, and they'll have an alternative. A Christian alternative to schooling or trafficking and learning about things like that. So that's what the money goes to.
Dan and Charlie, I appreciate all the work you've done. I appreciate your willingness to give and willingness to help. So thank you.
Blaine, thank you. And as usual, we have what we call the Mountain Patriot Prayer, written specifically by Charlie Marker, George Washington. And we always close the podcast with this. Charlie, please.
Thank you, Dana. Let us pray. Dear Lord, thank you for this beautiful world and this country that you've given us and the patriots who are willing to care for it. Thank you for inspiring our founders to create this beautiful republic. And please help us to keep it as the aspiring place to live. Please give us the wisdom to do the right things, the common sense to judge wisely, the energy to never give up, and your unending grace in which we take comfort. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. That is a wrap for another Mountain Patriots Educational Ministries podcast. Charlie, as always, my friend, part of the 3%. Blaine, thank you for being here, and we hope to see you all at Wake Up Winchester. Have a blessed day.
Take care.